back in June, we had talked a little bit about like caring for people and what that looks like in real life on life type of ministry, valuing people, serving them, that kind of thing. So hopefully since then you've taken some time to think through those things a little more, maybe make that a little bit more of a priority in your life. So today we're going to kind of continue some things from that. The honest truth is we probably could have, or maybe even should have, done these sessions in exact reverse order. It would have made sense in a lot of ways that way, but with the upcoming Cars and Guitars event on September 18th, I wanted to talk about some of these specific things today. So to do that back in June wouldn't have made sense. Today we're a couple weeks away, it makes more sense. So we're going to hop right in Ephesians 4. We're going to read 11 through 16 exactly. So it says, "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, and blown here and there by every wind of teaching, and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love, as each part does its work." So, at the beginning of that group of verses there, it mentions a bunch of different like people groups, right? Evangelists, pastors, teachers, so on and so forth. So it is very specific in a sense in how this group of verses starts, but the reality is that the things in these verses apply to each one of us, right? So don't take it as Steve's teaching out of context, because you could take it that way very easily, right? But the things in here apply to each one of our lives. Because in these verses it talks about equipping each other, right? That's something that we want to do as believers. Talks about no longer being infants in our relationship with God, right? So we should grow. You're born as a baby, you grow into an adult. Our Christian life should be the same way. How can we, the body of Christ, expand and grow in size? We don't just want it to be this many people all the time. We want more people to come to know Jesus. How can we build each other up? Verse 12 and verse 16 talk about, right? So we can probably spend days talking about those things, honestly, right? But we want to kind of focus in very specifically today, and we want to briefly look at what ministry actually is, right? There's a lot of different definitions you could use for ministry. A lot of different people call it different things. But we want to focus in on what it actually is. And when we understand what ministry actually is, then we can see that and how it applies to each of us, and the things in these verses here in Ephesians 4 are going to naturally happen, right? So if we're actually doing ministry as I think the Bible teaches it, we're going to equip each other. We're going to have new people come to Jesus, all those kind of things. So, number one, there on, I think, your first page. I know the handouts are a little weird with the spacing, but there's like pictures in it. And so to keep the pictures with the notes, it just had to be weird. So, and your guys' stuff is different than mine because I have extra notes. So I think you're still on page 1 there. The definition that we're going to use for ministry today is simply one person using his or her life to significantly impact the life of another person for Christ, right? Pretty basic. One person using his or her life to significantly impact the life of another for Jesus. And with that, there's 2 ministry mindsets that you could look at that most churches and most individuals operate from. You probably are going to fall into one or the other of these categories. I would argue one is better than the other, but you kind of need both, right? They kind of work hand in hand together in a sense, and we'll actually talk about that a bit later. But the first one would be your, quote, typical ministry mindset, right? It's a short-term program or task-oriented, right? Like today, I have a task, right? My task is to do this coaching session, right? When today is over and everybody leaves, my task is complete, right? Yay, awesome. That'll make me happy, right? So it's a program or a task-oriented thing. We have kids clubs, right? That's a program. You come on Wednesday night, and you teach the kids, and you send the kids away, and hopefully all of them get picked up by their parents, and then you go home, right? It's programs, it's tasks. You know, we had Awaken conference. That was a event, right? We had kids here each day for a couple of days, and then we sent them home, right? We had an event. Now, obviously with that was more than just an event-focused thing. But this type of mindset is just focused on, okay, I have X, Y, Z to do, I accomplish it. That's it, right? So it's a lower commitment level required, number 3 there. You're gonna have to invest some time and some resources into it, you know, some money, whatever it might be. And then number 5 there, you use your life there to complete a task, right? Now that's looking at it from a more of a church specific, right? Programs and events. But you as an individual, hopefully volunteer here in some way, and you're involved in one of those programs or events. Again, nothing wrong with that. I would just argue that the second one is a better mindset to look at for what ministry actually is. And then you combine the two, and you get the best of both worlds. All right? So the second one, what it says there, a biblical ministry mindset, is a longer-term, people-oriented mindset. So yes, you have programs and events at a church, right? At our church. You have things like Awaken Conference, you have things like youth group, all these different things, right? But instead of just being focused on the actual event or the program and accomplishing whatever you need to do, your focus is the people, right? So you have an event like Awaken Conference, but then what happens after it? What happens during it? It's not just getting the job done, it's actually following up with people afterwards and that kind of thing. We'll talk about it a little bit later there, but we actually had a really neat example this past Wednesday night of that happening, in a sense here. As individuals, it's the relational ministry mindset that we talked about last time here, right? So it's longer term, people oriented. So we as individuals, it's having people over to your house for dinner. It's going to the same gas station repeatedly so that maybe you get to know the clerk there, or to the same grocery store so that maybe you get to know the people there, right? So it's just finding ways to build relationships into your life and building them in such a way that you can then eventually tell them about Jesus or invite them to church or to an event, that kind of thing. But because it's people-oriented, it takes more of a commitment, right? I'm part of youth group. I can come on Wednesday night, do my thing, and peace out, right? Go home, I'm done. Or I can look at the people that are part of that, and those youth kids then become part of my life on more than just Wednesday nights. Right? That'd be the difference between a task or an event-oriented and a people-oriented, right? I mean, that might look like you go to a kid's ball game for a music event or whatever like that, right? It might mean having breakfast with them. Just a different way of looking at things. It's not just I do my event and I'm done. This is actually like my life, right? And so we can do the same thing with our relationships outside of church here, which is mostly what we spent last time talking about, is having those kind of relationships. So then number 4, it ends up investing not just time, but also your life. And when we do it this way, we can actually use our life to make a spiritual difference. So a lot of times we think of ministry as just what the church does, right? What the pastor does, right? We pay Pastor Drew, right? Here, he's the only paid employee, right? He's the only employee. He's the only paid person here. So we pay him to do a job. So we pay him to, quote, do ministry, right? The church does ministry, right? We have events like Cars and Guitars coming up. We have Awaken Conference, we have youth group, all those different things. And that is ministry, but it goes a whole lot farther than that. It's that life on life, one-on-one, small group ministry that makes things much deeper and larger than that. And when we do ministry that way, there's a much larger, much greater impact for Jesus than if we just do an event and peace out, right? If we just have dinner with some friends and that's that, you know, have dinner with some coworkers and that's that. Hopefully you build relationships over time and can talk to them about Jesus, can invite them to church, that kind of thing. So if that's the case, then who am I supposed to minister to? And that's where your fun little drawing there with the circles and the rectangle comes in next. So we should be ministering to anybody that's in our sphere of influence, right? Now, sphere of influence is like massive, broad term, right? It literally is anybody that you come in contact with. Checkout person at Wise, the gas station clerk, your friends, your family, your coworkers. It's everybody. It's you guys here, you guys would be in my sphere of influence. But we want to take that and we want to take it from massive, huge, big and go bring it down a little bit and focus things in, right? So that's what this drawing here is about. And this is not my drawing, right? I take no credit for this. And you guys should have pens, so if you want to fill things in as you go, I encourage you to put names in slots and people groups and that kind of thing. It just gives you a good reminder that you can come back to. So the top circle would be you, right? So I would put my name in there, Steve, right? That's me. The middle two circles in the pyramid there would be other believers, other Christ followers, right? Now, hopefully in your life you have a person or two that you are working with as believers to help each other become stronger and grow, right? Maybe it's a kid at youth group, right? Like I have a lot of that. Maybe it's a coworker or a friend that you both want to follow Jesus and you're both trying to build into each other's lives. I think that Ephesians chapter, or those Ephesians verses there use the word equip, right? You both want to equip each other to become stronger Christians. So that's be that middle two level. The Bible instructs us there to have people like that in our life. The bottom three circles there would be people that don't know Jesus, right? So last time I had challenged you guys to think of 3 people specifically that you know that don't know Jesus and then focus in on them, build relationship to work towards them hopefully coming to know Jesus at some point, right? So if you picked 3 names out last time, that probably would be those 3 people there for you. Maybe not, right? Those people may have moved in and out of your life. Your names may have changed. That's okay. But that's what that would be. People that you're trying to build a relationship with so that hopefully they come to know Jesus then. And then the rectangle at the bottom is family, right? Because family is a whole other ballgame from that kind of standpoint, right? It's a whole different relationship there. So the rectangle is just family there. Turn my page. There we go. So thinking of ministry this way and focusing things down, it helps focus and solidify your efforts, right? Because the reality is, if my sphere of influence is like this, it's realistically is probably hundreds of people, right? I can't have a real life-on-life ministry with all of them, right? There's only 24 hours in my day. I don't know about yours, but my 24 hours are generally pretty full. So I can't make this into my 24 hours. It's just not possible. So it kind of, thinking of things this way kind of focuses things down for you. It also allows God to move people in and out of your sphere of influence, right? People are going to move, jobs are going to change, all these different things that these people may move in and out of your life, and that's okay, right? And then it also gives us the realization that the longer you minister to somebody, the longer you have that relationship with them, the more effective it's going to become. So if I don't know you very well, Claire, can I use you as an example? And say I met Claire today for the first time, right? If I don't know Claire very well, I don't have the right, quote unquote, to speak into his life in certain ways. If I've known Jarvis for 17 years, which isn't true, but if I've known Jarvis for 17 years and we have a relationship that we've built up, I have earned the right to speak into his life, right? I can go to Jarvis and say, hey, I saw this going on. What's that, what's that about? Is that really the best thing? Is that right? Is that, I can do that. Claire that I just met today, most of the time, is not going to react well to that. Most people don't. No, there are people that will, but generally, if I come waltzing into somebody I don't know, and I put my foot down and yell and scream at them that they don't know Jesus and they're going to die and they're going to go to hell because they sin and blah, 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 most people don't react well to that, right? So it's about building relationship, and the longer you have that relationship, the closer you become, then you're going to have those hard conversations with people. So, all that being said, I know that was a lot. Does that mean we should only focus on the individual relationship, one-on-one type of thing, or smaller group, and not like church events and the bigger group things and that kind of thing? Of course not, right? That'd be silly. So we want to try to see, okay, how can you make the two of them, or even in a sense, those two ministry mindsets that I mentioned at the beginning, how can you make them work together? So that is where you get, Denisha, your donut, right?
Yeah.
Big circle, little circle, on I think your third page there, maybe. Should have brought donuts today probably, but no donuts. So big circle, little circle. So in the center there, there is a small circle. That's that inner little circle. That's exactly what we've been talking about, right? It's that life on life, relational, ministry stuff. It's dinner with friends. It's having the neighbors over. It's going to the same stores consistently to try to get to know people. It's all those things that we talked about in June, honestly. It's you focused on those in your life that don't know Jesus and doing what you can to build that relationship with them to talk about Jesus. So then if you spread out there, the bigger outer circle, it's a couple of things, but for today we just want to talk about it from the point of that bigger outer circle is our big community type events that we as a church can do, right? It's like the booth we had at the Jersey Shore Town Meeting. It's Awaken Conference. It's Cars and Guitars coming up here in September. It's those kind of events that we're having here. So then the trick becomes combining the two of them, right? Big circle and little circle. How do I take the relationships that I have in my little circle and I'll also have them be part of the big circle type events. So just kind of as a side note, something cool we saw from Awaken Conference is Wednesday night we had 6 kids here from Awaken Conference at youth group. 6 kids at youth group on Wednesday night from that weekend. There was only like 22 or 23 kids, I think, in the entire conference, and many of them are regulars here at church or at youth group. 6 of them were at youth group on Wednesday nights that are not regulars that we've never seen before other than from Awaken Conference. That is a really cool picture of a big circle type event, right? Starting to become potentially a smaller inner circle type of thing. Because now at youth group, we can build relationship with those kids in a different way than we did at conference, right? We can get to know them as leaders through small group time and just hanging out and whatnot, and build relationship in such a way that we can then have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to talk to them about God and about life things and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of a cool example of something that we saw, big thing becoming a smaller thing. So we want to combine the two of them, big circle and little circle. So as we get closer to wrapping up here, I want each of us to think about those in our little inner circles, right? Who is it that you're focusing on that needs Jesus? Maybe you were here in June and you put names to it. Maybe it's those people. So take those people and then go slightly farther and expand it out to everybody that you know that doesn't know Jesus, right? You probably just went from a couple of names to now a whole bunch of names might be floating around in your head. Hopefully, right? So take it from your focused people to everybody you know that doesn't know Jesus. Well, the beauty of big circle events is that they can apply to a large segment of people, right? Cars and Guitars coming up here in September. We're going to have a car show. There will be food. There will be a band. Some stuff for kids, I think. Like all sorts of different things, right? Like that all appeals to different people, right? If you just have a car show, that's only going to appeal to a certain segment of people. If you have a band, that'll appeal to a certain segment of people, right? So that's the beauty of big circle events, is that they work for a lot of people. And that's one reason we hold these type of events, is that it gives us as a church and us as individuals the opportunity to have a non-threatening way to invite people that don't know Jesus to church grounds, right? Not the church, but to the church grounds. A lot of people won't just come to church, right? You can invite them to church all you want. but a lot of people will not come to church. However, they might come to a car show, or they might come see a band, or they might bring their kids to, go down a bounce house or whatever, right? But will they come to church? Probably not, right? So it's a great opportunity to have a non-threatening way to invite our lost friends, our coworkers, family members to an event here at church. Because the reality is that if 100 people show up to Cars and Guitars in September, can I have a relationship with all of them? No, right? Pastor Drew, you paid to be here. Can you have a relationship with all of them? No, right? But if each one of us invites some of those people, it's somebody that we already have a relationship with, right? So we can then build on that relationship farther and farther. Now, of course, with that, I just completely lost my train of thought. I knew where I was going. I just completely lost it. I don't know if I'm going to bring it back or not. Nope. I don't know. I lost it. It's all good. We can edit that out. Yeah, I have no clue where I was going. I completely lost it. The reality is that collectively we can build that type of relationship all together, right? Oh, I got it.
Hey,
it came back.
Welcome back.
Still gonna have to edit that out. It came back. So also with the September 18th Cars and Guitars there, we're not gonna just let our opportunities slide either, right? We're gonna have a table set up with information about the church, about youth group, about clubs, that kind of thing, so that if there are people there that want to talk, we can talk to them. If there's kids there, maybe they could sign up for kids clubs, because kids clubs is going to start September 29th, and that's on purpose so that it's after Cars and Guitars. So if we have any kids that come, maybe they could, get interested in coming and then be able to start afterwards. So we're going to have all sorts of stuff there at Cars and Guitars, but the reality is it's only 3 weeks away, right? 3 weeks from yesterday will be Cars and Guitars. So what we want to think about is that means it's time to start inviting people, right? It's time to start thinking about, all right, who am I going to invite? So the challenge for each of us then is two things. It's a continuation of what we talked about last time. Do you have those 3 people? Maybe you wrote 3 names down today in your pyramid. Do you have those 3 people that you want to focus on that don't know Jesus, right? Who you think God wants you to focus on? And then second, who are you going to invite to Cars and Guitars, right? Be specific with it. I gave you room there to write down some names. I think I gave 4 lines. Obviously, you can invite 20 people. But be specific with who you want to invite. Think about that. Say, okay, who do I think this would interest? Who could I invite? And then put names to it. And then I would take that challenge one step farther. If you're brave, share those names with somebody else. Maybe it's somebody here. Maybe it's somebody in your family. I don't know, right? But share those names with somebody else and say, hey, on September the 8th, whatever, I want you to ask me if I invited those people or not. All right? Put a little oomph behind it and actually ask somebody else to check in on you. That's when it gets daring, because you'll see if you actually follow through or not. So write it down. I encourage that. I know the more I write down, the more likely I am to follow through. Right? It's on paper then. I can see it. I can follow back up with it. If I don't write it down, it could just be gone, because there's a whole lot of stuff rolling around up here on most days. And so writing it down is good. So hopefully, as we go here, you're starting to see this mindset of ministry as this long-term, it's a relational thing. It's not just a task that you have to do as an individual or as a church. It's, it's more than events. It's caring for people. It's serving them. It's us growing together as believers too, right? That's ministry. It's not just what the pastor or the church does. It's a lot more than that. And when we all minister in this way, not only do we as individuals grow, not only do we as a church grow, but our body of believers will hopefully expand, right? If we have relationship this way, more people will come to know Jesus. It might be next week. It might be 8 years from now, right? Point number 2, I believe it was. No, number 1 on a biblical ministry mindset was long term. You might have a relationship with somebody for 14 years before they come to know Jesus. I don't know, right? You might have a relationship with somebody for 14 years, and someone that they meet for the first time might be the one that leads them to Jesus, right? Who knows? But it's you are building those stepping stones. You're working that relationship in to be able to tell them about Jesus. So back to our definition of ministry, one person using his or her life to significantly impact the life of another person for Christ, right? So our challenge today is to actually try to live that way. Not always easy. You know, we talk about events and people, or tasks and people. Tasks are easy, right? I can get stuff done like no other. People are tough, right? It just is. Relationships are messy. People are tough. Getting something done, getting a task done, I can knock that out. People, it's tougher, right? But that's why it's a higher commitment level. It's a longer term relationship. But with that, I also think that there's a lot more reward that comes from that, and a lot more opportunity for people to come to know Jesus. And that's what we should be after.